expectation. Hi, Lynn. How are you? Good to see you.
Preston, take it away.
Okay, awesome. T.
Here.
Dominic. Who's this here? Rachel.
Here.
Harry.
Here.
Here. Tyler.
Here.
Dean.
Here.
Jordan.
Here.
Hope.
There.
Dorian. Here. Brian. Andrew.
Here.
Oh, okay. Pause it now. Gisette. Oh wait. Never mind. Pause on Gisette. Never mind. Angela.
Here.
Carlos. Okay. Cash. Camille. Liam. Awesome. Derek.
Here.
Oh, hey, Derek. Sam.
Here.
Rachel Jordan.
Here.
Joey Holland. Elizabeth, oh, never mind. Pause on that. Christopher Mark. Awesome. Guys, just remember, like, attendance, I mean, of course it doesn't really matter to people here, because people here, like, always show up, but just remember, if you have more than 3, you will be hearing from me very shortly. So, let's just remember to keep our attendance up. Thank you, guys.
As a point of order, is Slack here? I'm Slack.
Christopher Mark is here.
Jose, Elizabeth, oh wait, sorry, just Jose. Listen, I don't know, these committees are just one committee to me.
Okay. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
Motion. Second.
Okay. First up, we have, reports of officers from Vice President.
Yeah. Hey. So these are from Eva, and like one of them from me. But basically, the voice of Eva, the voice of Eva. Thank you all so much for coming to the retreat. I hope you all got some good bonding out of it and felt the time was useful. If you have any feedback about the retreat, good or bad, please text Eva or tell me or Lucy. And there will be more informal bonding opportunities to come. Please sign up for the 10th retreating on Saturday, 10:30, not this Saturday. I'll say the date. Check the group and update email for signups. Sexual violence climate survey is out. Please fill out the survey and encourage those around you to do so. It's really important that we participate in those kind of things. Survey is completely anonymous. Donated money. They will donate money to local sexual violence charities, and the link was sent out today in your email, so be on the lookout for that. SGA newsletter will be coming out this week and sent to all students. So, on my end, applications for the DNAT department and first year initiatives program will be included in that. So, get excited for new SGA members, you know the vibes. And if you also know anyone interested in joining SGA, time to be on the lookout for that. Yeah, if you know anybody trying to get involved, please let them sign up. There will be a meeting with HR tomorrow to talk about minimum wage. James, Eva, and Kyle will be getting specific number on work study students and logistics of actually raising it to like the university budget. Updates after that meeting will come. Next step is meeting with Father Peter and the VP of Finance for the university. Athletics, Thomas has been meeting with regularly with athletics. There's exciting announcements about basketball season coming out soon, and some things about classes for next semester. So IGR is being offered next semester. This is the one credit course that is developed around the idea that people can only come to understand each other in the process of sustained and meaningful dialogue space through cultural misunderstandings and personal differences. Topics offered next semester include gender, race, disability, and more. Check the SGA Insta for the link to pre-register. From Eva, this is from Eva, what she thinks about the class. Best class I have ever taken, and I could agree with that because I took the same class with Eva. That's how I met Eva. That's how I met one of my best friends. It's a really great class, really immerse yourself in these kind of conversations that you really don't usually get to have because you're always so busy taking classes or like just so busy with your own life. So it's really good to just dive into these different perspectives and get to know more about people from different identities. Also, the URJC, the University Race and Justice course, is being offered this semester on Thursdays from 1 to 2:15. I am in that class, so is Eva, so is T, so is Jose. It's an amazing class. You get to really learn a lot. Learn a lot about like university history, like the true history of the university, and different topics just like how different cities are segregated, like education, how media plays a role in like villainizing non-majority identities. It's a really great class. You will get to learn a lot, and like I said, you get to meet new people. I'm making friends in that class too. So yeah, I highly recommend it if you get the chance to take it. And like they're trying to get a feel for it to how to implement it if they could to the rest of the university. So definitely recommend it if you want to be like a part of that startup. And yeah, that's it.
Cool, thank you. Next up, we have we have committee updates. So I have updates from Slack. Jose said that they have a meeting with HR about raising the minimum wage tomorrow at 10 a.m. There's a new student org presentation that starts on Monday. For Nova Nights, they approved one event. There's one event that's pending and they declined one event, but the event they declined wants to appeal, so they're gonna be meeting with them to appeal. And then they have, Slack has a meeting with Res Life and Dining Services next week. So if any requests, send them to Jose. Do you have anything to add?
Nothing much, other than that, me and Jose are probably in a separate meeting with Dining Services to talk about, low quality food this year. That's pretty much it.
Just to elaborate on the presentations, they're starting Monday, and I believe there's currently 16 groups trying to start new organizations. So they'll continue, I believe it's from the 1st to the 10th are kind of the range of those presentations. And it'll be Kara, the new assistant director in student involvement, Rachel, Jose, and I who are sitting in on those presentations. And it's all part of the new process that was started this semester.
Cool, thank you. Derek, do you have any ICC updates?
So, main thing right now is the mural. We're looking for funding from the president's office, OSI, and SGA funds. We're also working with Sheree to get more accurate measurements, how much they need to buy. And the tentative dates are Friday, November 12th, Saturday, November 13th, and if we need it, Sunday, November 14th.
There may also be options, because this is the art club that's doing it, to provide food for the volunteers as well. So that's an initiative we're looking into. Obviously, we're gonna go to the president's office first, as well as OSI, but to be honest, they're also spending a lot of money on this mural necessarily, so, and they've done a lot of collaboration as well, so we're kind of working that out as well, but just kind of be on the lookout for a potential bill that buys them essentially lunch.
Can anyone give MSJ updates? If not, that's cool. Okay, and then last up we have TQ.
Okay, so I'm meeting with some people from Visor just to figure out what they're doing with their situation. The situation being that there's not a Visor senator. There is some legislation that I'll present today, which basically has to do with the sophomore series that we're doing with the Office of Student Life. So you'll hear more about that later. Also, looking to support again the Bandama project. You'll hear more about that probably next week. On that, the meetings of counseling center are ongoing. The place we're at right now is that we're trying to figure out something other than the calls. Still looking into a lot of stuff, but also trying to advertise resources that aren't the counseling center. For example, like support groups on campus. There's a lot of student groups that deal with mental health, so trying to also balance the fact that there's other places where you can get help, but also when you do need to go to the counseling center, making it a little bit more efficient. And also we're working on a project or just receptive to ideas about engaging PubSafe, students engaging PubSafe, specifically around the recent sort of break-in, just making people feel and understand a little bit more about how they're being kid-sit or if they're being kid-sit. And then, yes.
Thank you. So our main order of business today is the bill that you mentioned, the sophomore series part 1. So I'm gonna pull that up so that everyone can see, and then team.
Okay, so this bill is basically the beginning part of a very large project. We've been working with Father Bernie and the Office of Student Life to basically figure out how we can bridge the gap that was created with COVID when it comes to the sophomore class. From the big things like, so a lot of it sort of was not getting a proper orientation, not knowing the school song, that type of thing. A lot of things which most other classes got to experience and we don't, but also just not having CASA in person for advising, stuff like that, which, you know, sort of kind of goes back across your head. The idea is to have a 4-part series which sort of touches on different things. The first of the parts, which is what I'm presenting to you today, is next week, Monday. And it is essentially collaborating with the nation who have their general body meeting, but it's a specific meeting. It's called like the tip-off game. I don't know what the official name is as of now, but it's essentially where the dance team and the mascot and Jay Wright and all the cool people get to be there, and they teach you all the school songs. They give you the vibe of what it's like to be at a game, which again sophomores don't understand because they were never there. So that's part 1 of the series. Part 2 is going to be a panel which will consist of alumni and upperclassmen, and then part 3 and 4 will be in the spring, and they will touch on the different topics like campus ministry retreats, stuff like that. Just a whole bunch of things where we're just noticing that enrollment-wise there is this gap in the sophomore year. But today we're talking about part 1, which, like I said, is next week Monday at 6:30. If you look at the piece of legislation. So the event is happening. Student Life is putting it on with the nation and with athletics. It is going to occur, and it is not a exclusively sophomore event. It is open to the entire student body population. The idea here is we're sort of just hopping on it. One, Student Life just really wants support from SGA members, mostly as volunteers at the event. We're going to be collecting a lot of information specifically from the sophomore class about what they want to know about and what they want to hear about at the panels and at the future parts of the event. It's also, again, trying to draw the sophomore class there because that is when you're going to learn the songs and the dances and just get a general vibe of the atmosphere. And so essentially the role that SGA and senators and SGA members would be playing is a volunteer role, helping Student Life reach the target audience they want to both before and during the event. So the before section of it would just be advertising, keeping the conversation alive, discussing the event with any sophomores that you might know, and then the during the event, which is really the groundwork, is just making sure that the QR codes are being circulated, as well as making sure as SGA members you have an idea of what part 2 will look like, because at part 1, you're advertising part 2. How will you know what part 2 will look like? I will tell you. So the event is happening. Student Life is sponsoring a lot of like giveaways, t-shirts, all of that type of stuff. We don't require any funding from SGA. Really, this piece of legislation is just basically saying if you're available that day and before everyone should be talking about it, posting about it, sharing it. I've spoken to Lindsay, we're getting it on Instagram and our other social media, and then if you're available on that day, being present and being ready to help and volunteer. There'll be a sign-up sheet with more specific roles that you can play, but other than that, yeah, it's nothing too demanding.
Motion open question.
Second.
T, this looks great. I like that you coordinated with everyone, and just to confirm, like OSI knows we want to support them, Student Life is involved in it, and when we go into the rest of the events in the series, will those be more SGA driven? And this is like the one that's like not sponsored mostly by us, or will the other ones also be like more partnership?
Right, so yeah, so this was going to be an SGA event, it just didn't make sense to have them both happening. So the nation was already doing this, and we were trying to book Jay Wright, we were trying to book the band and everything, and we're like, well, they're already going to all be here at this event at this time. The idea is the other 3 parts are supposed to be a lot more SGA focused and Student Life focused. So this isn't even mostly Student Life, most of this is the nation. Like 80% of this is the nation, and then Student Life and SGA are working to push the sort of sophomore part of it, because it's open to everyone.
Andrew,
So you mentioned that it's being kind of run by the nation and that it's like a nation meeting. Is it still open to the entire university community, or is it kind of being advertised by the nation as an event for nation members?
So the nation are advertising it to the the entire community and to nation members. Our job is to advertise it to sophomores.
And
Can you talk a little bit about the conversations that you've had with the nation regarding like the event, as far as like SGA people coming in, participating, maybe even it being groundwork for later events that we would kind of then like take their population and use for marketing?
Yeah, so it was actually their idea. So like I said, we presented the idea, and obviously the best way to get to like the band, dance team, cheer team would be to go through the nation, because they like control all of that. And whilst we were going through them, they sort of said, we can see you really want to do this, but we're struggling to find dates and times. This is our event, do you want to hop on? So they're in on it. Their request was, as nation members and as athletics and as student life, we don't have the personnel to be sending out your surveys or to be going to find sophomores to ask these questions. So that's where SGA comes in, is we need to provide that personnel because they're not going to.
and did you have a question?
Okay, so first, this is like suggesting that like a lot of action on the part of SGA and like encouraging us to participate in these events, correct? And is there a way that we are trying to like enforce this participation within this bill?
There isn't really, if you're busy, you're busy. I think for me, like Tiana Paris personally, it's more sort of symbolic. I want to set up the series to everyone. So like I want to make it clear that it's a 4-part series and the rest of the parts are supposed to be a lot more driven by SGA. That's why I put it forward. And also just from an administrative point of view, student life wants to see the commitment from SGA that we're not just trying to hop onto stuff with them. So they've really done all the work, like they've done everything. We just have to show up on Monday. And so this is just sort of our commitment to them that they will be in charge of handing out QR codes and the burden won't fall on them.
Okay, and on top of that, so this is an event that's being advertised to like the whole of the student body, is anything anyone can go to. How are we at the same time making sure that this is an event that will also cater towards sophomores individually?
Yeah, so the general pool is freshmen. That's usually who attends this event. So the first thing would be in the run-up. There is what's the word in English? Posters and stuff, advertising, which will specify sort of there'll be a point where either me or someone will have the opportunity to announce part 2 to the attendees and explain like, hey, if you're a sophomore and you're here today, find the SGA members, it's etc. So the idea is, yes, it's open to everyone, and it can't be like sophomore specific. That's just not something we were able to do. But yeah. Oh, and then the pull for them particularly is also there's going to be like prizes and awards and stuff for attending and doing the survey. So they kind of work hand in hand. So the nation gets more attendees, and then we get our surveys.
Just to clarify, what we're voting on for tonight is to open the conversation about the rest of the sophomore series.
I believe what we would be voting for would be to commit as much personnel to this event as possible. So part 2, 3, and 4, all 4 events will happen. The question is, how involved will SGA be? So this is part 1, and tonight we're voting that our involvement will go as far as being volunteers at the event and advertising to sophomores. And then when part 2, 3, and 4 are closer, then I guess it would be like a step-by-step thing, depending on what like the requirements are.
But if we were to vote yes for this, and then you said that we're going to introduce part 2 at the event, wouldn't that necessarily imply that now we're sponsoring part 2 as well, and we haven't voted on part 2 yet?
Okay, so this came out of Student Life, and Student Life responds financially at least everything. So idea-wise, implementation-wise, that's supposed to come out of SGA, but like essentially all 4 parts will happen no matter what SGA kind of decides, because it will come from Student Life. But the idea is, as representatives of the students, we should have a say in like what do the other 3 parts look like, how are they structured, and our way of having a say is by doing stuff like this where we get involved. So part 2 is happening, like it's happening either way. so the idea would be either another vote or another conversation about then like what HGA is going to do, what role we would play.
Did you have a question?
Mine was just going off of that, so can you just elaborate a little bit more on the like focus of the panel and what their roles will be in this entirety?
Yeah, so part 2 is looking at a panel. It'd be alumni, people from the Career Center. So part 2 is sort of focused on the academic experience, if I have to talk about it briefly. It'd be alumni, people from the Career Center and upperclassmen. It would discuss choosing a major, how majors link to sort of your career path later on. It would discuss sort of courses and what they actually mean. Maybe you took a course virtually that was generally in person, how that differs. Maybe that changes your perspective on sort of a career path or a field. So part 2 is academic focus. The panelists would be people who can speak on how your academic career should look like in a normal circumstance.
This is just out of curiosity. When will advertising start for this, or tip-off event, since it is less than a week?
Yeah, so the Nation have already started advertising it. Generally, we have all the posters and whatever those things are called ready to go. We could pass it and I could put it on the group, like it's ready, so we could start whenever.
Motion to debate.
Second.
Oh,
shoot.
sorry, Derek, I didn't see you.
Okay, guys. What? Can I-
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I was like, hold on. No. So, T, it sounds like the only, like, hard, like, must do from this bill, right, the commandment almost, is attend this event. So, why is it a bill and not just like a general request? What was the deciding factor there?
I think for me, it was really just showing commitment to the bodies that are helping us. Like, we sat down as an organization and said, like, this is something which we all want to put in writing and put in legislation that we will commit. And again, like I said, it's also set up for the next 3 parts of it. So, like, I just wanted to have it as, I want it to become a lot more SGA centered, and I don't want student life running away with it. And so for me, like, this bill is more about, like, cementing our role in this project.
Motion to debate. Or
Did you have
Sorry.
follow-up, or-
No, I said motion to debate, my bad.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
I will be voting in favor of this bill. I know that T and Eric have worked very hard on making sure that this initiative is something that will benefit the sophomores and the community as a whole. And I think that as an organization, we owe it to this initiative to put our influence and our work behind this.
Andrew, and then-
Like Harry, I'm going to speak in favor of this bill. Coming from the perspective of a sophomore, there definitely are these gaps, and I really appreciate that both Student Life and SGA are kind of working on solutions to that. So I'm really excited to kind of see where this series continues and how future events work. And I think that if we were to vote no on this, that it really damages the relationship to influence the remaining 3 events in the series. So it really is crucial that we do vote yes on this tonight.
Just to follow up with that, I think that, like the school passion, just pride in being a build over fans, like in correlation with the nation. I think student government, like Andrew said, like us, like upholding that relationship, showing like our presence there, I think that can be very important and also beneficial to the sophomores, that missed out on a considerable amount last year. So I will also be voting.
I will also be voting in favor because going off of the I feel like one of our major goals to touch upon like after COVID was to ensure inclusion and as much normalcy as possible. And I feel like this is giving sophomores like their best chance to feel like they have gotten every opportunity that they can.
Motion to vote?
Second.
Okay. All in favor of passing the sophomore series part 1, say yay. Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, this bill has passed. We didn't have
Okay, 2024.
Does anyone have any announcements?
Oh, I do. If you want to be a mentor, you know who to talk to. We got some really cool kids over here. You know you're gonna want one.
I mentioned this last week, but the kind of revamped already newsletter, coming out of student involvement went out again today. A new addition this week, there's gonna be some like trivia contest sorts of things down at the bottom. So really incentivizing you to actually scroll through the email. So please make sure you're reading that. We do serve in a role in SGA to kind of be promoting these events. So it's really important that we are seeing what is happening on campus. Also, down at the very bottom, it talks about Hall Weekend and some of the events going on with that. So there's everything ranging from a pub series continuation through to some just generic Halloween themed events as well. So it's a great opportunity to get involved this weekend.
Anyone else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Hi guys. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Halloween.